Hello. So my presentation for this week will explain data that I have collected surrounding my 5 community managers. Each of them have created their communities from the ground up and continue to pave the way to what makes a foolproof community manager. But let me begin by stating that I followed my community managers on Twitter only. They don't have other active social media accounts where I could accurately gain usable information, but following them on only one social media site allowed me to better pay attention to their actions, responses, and posts, so on. So first up is Tim McDonald. McDonald is very active on Twitter with a following of over 20,000 people. He tweets several times a day, and most of his tweets are inspirational, which goes hand in hand with his brand and company, Lifeaholic. Almost all of his tweets have a high interaction rate of retweets, likes, and comments. For example, on May 2nd, McDonald tweeted, "You create ripples with your actions. Seeing the impact your ripples have is a gift. Believing in why you create them is your purpose." The tweet provoked a comment from a woman who was thanking McDonald for what he does and how he inspires. I think that was certainly an instance where McDonald felt his community was listening to him and that he was actually making an impact. Next, we have Richard Millington. Millington is also an active engager on his Twitter account with close to 8,000 followers. His tweets are exemplary of what his company, Fever provokes: in-depth conversation. He asks questions and tries to engage through intellect. But of course, with that type of tweeting, Millington gets a lot of responses. He replies in kind and rarely leaves a comment unattended to. The most recent instance where Millington engaged in conversation was on July 7th when he tweeted a 3-tweet series about robots. Millington responded to each of his community members with eagerness and politeness. His back and forth in conversations lets his community know that he is evident in listening and excited to discuss the topics that he tweets about. I think the fact that Millington responds with intellectual responses lets his community know that he is a reliable source and knowledgeable about the topics being discussed. Paul Nazareth. Just as his charitable company exudes, his tweets promote his passion. They're mostly based on charities that he's been funding, along with stories in the media that have caused a stir. Nazareth's tweets rarely come without an attachment to an article or a flyer, such as for a recent happening in the news or a local networking event. Surprisingly, he doesn't get many responses from his 8,000 followers, and because of that, it's difficult to determine whether or not Nazareth's community is listening to him due to the lack of interaction from his followers. But just because they aren't always interacting certainly doesn't mean they're not paying attention. However, to increase interaction amongst Nazareth and his community, I would suggest Nazareth add a few open-ended tweets rather than just promoting current events or local fundraisers. That way, his followers have an opportunity to respond to him. Right now, Nazareth doesn't have a large amount of tweets that provoke a response. Here we have Dennis Fishman. With only a little over 1,000 followers, Fishman tweets with each and every one of them in mind. He provokes thought in his tweets with questions and attachments of articles discussing finance, business opportunities, nonprofit, charitable events, and social media tips. With his small following, he doesn't get many responses, but that doesn't stop him from delegating conversation. Since the main focus of his business is dedicated to communication and fundraising for nonprofits, he constantly retweets and posts the article, "Fundraising Tuesday, is funding destiny?" Although this article is helpful, it's more than likely reached its potential on his Twitter feed. I would suggest Fishman broaden his horizons and create his own Fundraising Tuesday post, where every Tuesday he posts a new tip on how to better raise money for your nonprofit organization. Right now, he's giving his community what they want, but I think they deserve more variety. Last and certainly not least, we have John Hayden. With over 48,000 Twitter followers, Hayden dispenses the most information through roughly 10 tweets per day. His tweets are in the form of original thoughts, retweets, article postings, political irony, and more. His humorous yet informational postings target an array of followers who demonstrate their loyalty through a sufficient amount of likes and retweets. Hayden promotes conversation and welcomes debate, yet doesn't get a lot of commenters. On the screen here, I have a variety of Hayden's most popular tweets from the past week, each with likes and retweets but no comments. As Hayden is my community manager with the largest following, I was very surprised in his lack of conversation on his Twitter feed. But if I were to give him a suggestion, it would be to encourage communication through asking questions. It may be difficult at times for his community to know whether or not he is paying attention because of the lack of interaction. Each one of my 5 community managers are considered community managers because of their passion and devotion to the topic of their choice. They've made names for themselves in that industry and lead the way through the distribution of knowledge and thought-provoking posts on Twitter. Although they each have their own amount of followers and converse in different ways, their audience continues to listen to them.